am Ersula Odom. I'm the CEO of Sula Too, and we make old new in everything we do. In that we capture, preserve, and present legacy information and present it in any form possible, from books to legacy walls to live performances. And you're watching one of them right now. Hello, this is Ursula, and yes, we're back with another great show of wisdom and young legend. And today, I'm going to be talking to someone who found me. And it's going to be an interesting story that will unfold here today. And I'm not quite sure exactly what direction it's going in, but let's first find out who she is and what she has been doing with her life. So, who is it that I'm bringing to you today? Let's find out. It is Taneya Koonce. Hi, Taneya.
Hi, Ursula. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you for inviting me to join you.
So, um, tell me about you and what you do.
Oh, that's such a broad question. So, about me. Well, I am in Nashville, Tennessee, and I have a very strong hobby pursuit of exploring my family history and helping others with their genealogy as well. So, I do a myriad of things in that regard, from volunteering. I volunteer with several national projects, as well as running a Facebook community where I also get to engage with others who are so enthusiastic about this as well.
How did you get started with this?
With doing my family history?
Mhm.
Well, okay. So I actually like to tell this as a journey with 3 steps. So, step number 1 happened when I was 9 years old. My aunt passed away, and we went to bury her in the family cemetery in the hometown where my father was from, her and my father and my aunts and uncles. And I remember being in the cemetery and looking around on the ground and seeing all these headstones with my last name, Kuntz. And I turned to my father and I said, Daddy, who are these people? They all have the same last name. He said, well, these are your family members. And he pointed me in particular to his grandfather's headstone. His name was Barfield Kuntz, and said, this, was my grandfather. And I think I remember at that time feeling like I had some concrete awareness of the people that came before my grandparents, because I knew who my grandparents were. But before that, I was 9 years old. I didn't think about it until that trip to the cemetery. So that happened when I was 9. So that, I think, piqued my interest in those that came before me. Step 2 happened when I was in college. I, one summer when I was home, interviewed both of my grandmothers and sat down with them and just asked them to tell me about their families. And so they did, and I recorded them. Well, I just took notes. I didn't actually tape record them, but I took notes and wrote all these notes down and enjoyed those conversations and just really put the notes away. I didn't do too much with it at that time. So this is while I was in college. Well, fast forward, and this is step 3 after I had my daughter. So this was around 2005. It was shortly after I had her. And I was cleaning up and came across these notes that I had, and I actually still have the handwritten notes from those conversations with my grandmothers. But by this time, both of my grandmothers had Alzheimer's. And so I was reading over these notes thinking, they've shared this family history with me. I really should do something to preserve it. So I started figuring out how I could have records to document and corroborate what they were telling me. And I became hooked. It's story over since then.
Now, I don't think we've had this conversation.
I don't think we have either. But
So, get a load of this. A very shy college student came home for the summer, sat down at her grandmother's feet, and said, "Tell me the stories you used to tell me." Since her grandmother adored her, she granted her wish. They spent the afternoon singing, laughing, and sharing with her the moments that would create an abundance of goodwill for years to come. That was me
oh my God.
at my grandmother's feet with a tape recorder. And it was my sophomore year in college.
Wow.
About 5 or 6 years old, I crawled under my grandmother's bed and pulled out old documents, a lock of her sister's hair, letters, stamps, coins. I was fascinated. So you at 9 and me at 5.
And then both of us in college.
And both of us in college.
Wow.
And it's been with me ever since. That's why, so one of the things I asked my guest is to tell me what 5-year-old Taneya was like. And you just told me about 10-year-old. What about 5-year-old? I mean, or what
5-year-old.
9-year-old
Let's,
is about, where you basically told me you came into an awareness at that point. And
mhm.
that's the point I was getting at. But if there's something else that you'd like to share about that early time frame, let me know.
Wow. Well, let me think about it for a second. Let's see. 5 years old. Uh, let's see. Well, I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, so we were living in Greensboro at the time. At this point, I had one sibling, my younger brother. My sister wouldn't be born until I was 10. And I guess I was like any other 5-year-old, right? Living life, carefree, not really worried about too many things. I enjoyed school, had good friends, and boy, 5 years old, I think life was good.
Well, the reason I ask is because sometimes it gives us insight into who we become.
Mhm.
And you shared that at about 9. You may have been aware of the you before then, but the time that sticks in your mind is at 9 years old. So that answers the question.
Great.
Now, what discoveries have you made?
So many. And that's really why I think I've taken to this journey of learning about my family history is precisely because of discoveries. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to tell one of the first discoveries I made. When I had the conversation with my grandmothers about the family, my maternal grandmother told me that we were related to Charles Barkley. So I wrote that down. And she also gave me some other clues. And she said, oh, there was another Barkley who was a famous boxer. So I was trying to figure this out. Like I said, she told me Charles Barkley was a cousin. Can I document it? And one of my early discoveries was actually being able to document exactly how we were related. And that came about because a cousin had shared with me a family program, a family history program for one of the reunions that the family had over the years. And so I was working through the program and got to someone in the family who married a Barkley and then was able to trace her down and get to Charles. And I also found that boxer.
So was that on your mother's side or your father's side?
My mother's side of the family.
Holy smackerel.
So let's see.
That
Hold
means,
on.
yeah, 50-50 chance for me to be related as well, right?
Let me think about the line of descent here. You are, yes, you are related to Charles Barkley.
Oh, hi. That's so funny. That is amazing. And for the world, our audience, Taneya and I obviously are cousins, and we discovered that because both of us put our DNA in the system.
Yep.
And she found me because I was the closest relative to her mother. And my work was done because Taneya is just tenacious, close to her name. I found
Well,
out something about a family member and told her about it. She said, "Give me a minute." And within 2 hours, she had the whole side of the tree mapped out. It was amazing. So, um, how does do you have a little bit of history about DNA and how it came to be what it is today and why we know what we know?
in particular with our relationship or just in general?
Just in
Just
general.
in general. Oh boy. Well, doing DNA tests has been around for a long time. Traditionally, there were tests where you could have the Y chromosome tested. So that would give you information about a male's ancestry because men have the Y chromosome in most cases, the Y chromosomes in males. Then you could also test maternally by looking at mitochondrial DNA, which is passed from mother to child. So if you had your mitochondrial DNA tested, that gave you information about your matrilineal line. But then we got the advent of DNA tests that are able to test the autosomes of our DNA. So the Y chromosome and the matrilineal, the mitochondrial DNA are not reflective of your entire genome. So now we have DNA tests that can scope your entire genome and help you find cousins that match. I will share that I started using these types of tests around 2008, I believe. And, since then, they've really just taken off. We have several major companies that offer this type of autosomal testing. The first major one in the market was 23andMe, the 23 referring to our 23 sets of chromosomes. And now we have so many other. We have Ancestry, DNA, we have tests from MyHeritage, we have tests from Family Tree DNA, Living DNA. There's multiple options for being able to do these types of tests that can look across your entire genome and help you find matching cousins.
Wow. And I'm telling you, it's addictive because, quite frankly, ever since I started doing that, oh goodness, it's a ritual now to click to see, okay, did anybody else pop up?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
there have been people that have popped up that have been quite revealing. So it's if you like puzzles, I think you would like working on DNA discoveries because it's one big family puzzle. And also emotional puzzle too, because people find out things that they're not prepared for. Relatives that they didn't know were their relatives, and needless to say, that happens to all of us. Okay, so your website, it is incredible, or I should say, tell us about that.
So I started blogging about my family history right after in the 2005 time period, as I was saying earlier, after I had my daughter, and I decided I really need to be more serious about this. And I started the blog as a way to document what I was finding. That's really what it was for me. It was a way to document and have something that was easily shareable with my family. Like, look what I discovered this week, and look at these documents. And it just took off from there. I've been blogging ever since. I don't blog as frequently as I used to, but I still use it primarily as a way to document what I am finding, as a way to describe challenges I experience, as a way to provide education for others on resources and strategies that I find useful and work for me. And I really just have enjoyed it so much because I've gotten to connect with others. I've had cousins reach out to me because of what I had on the blog. They found me as a cousin. I've had material shared with me because of what I have on the blog that I would not have otherwise found necessarily, I don't think. So it has just been incredible to be able to put that out there in the world and then be able to connect with others because of it. And again, share it with my family.
So this is the reason why you're on the show, because in my opinion, you are a young legend, because the level of detail that you have gotten to and the level of research and then that documentation is beyond what I think the average and ordinary person will do. And I think because of your blog, you would be considered an expert or a specialist in this area, correct?
Well, thank you for the kind words. I do consider myself well versed in these techniques that I love sharing. Yes.
That was a modest way to put it. I like that, well versed. Okay. So have you spoken at conferences being well versed?
So I have spoken at regional meetings. I have done web-based presentations for for societies and other locations. I have not traveled to any conferences to present, except for well, travel. I had I'm a president of the national chapter of the African American Historical and Genealogical Society. Before I was president, I was a volunteer and really just helped out because I believe so passionately in the work that the society does. And in 2013, the conference was here in Nashville. So I didn't have to travel and I was able to present at the national conference. But I've not traveled. I have a very full work life, family life. So that always, family always comes first. So but I really have enjoyed the opportunities that I have had to share and connect with others.
Mm-hmm. And tell us about that organization.
Yes. So the African American Historical and Genealogical Society is a national organization with chapters all over the country. So I am involved and volunteer with the Nashville chapter. And our goals are really to help promote and encourage the study of history and documentation and research for African American history and genealogy. So our chapter serves those that have connections here to Nashville and the surrounding area in Middle Tennessee.
What are some of the things that they do?
We have regular meetings where we get to hear about presentations of individuals who are working on projects relevant to Nashville area African American history. We do outreach. So in fact, I'm going to have a very busy February because we do presentations in the community to help share techniques and strategies that can be used whenever you're doing research on someone who has African ancestry in this country. We also do outreach in terms of partnering with other initiatives and collaborations that are going on. I can, for example, give that we recently partnered with an organization called the Descendants of Fort Negley. Fort Negley is a fort that's here in Nashville, and it was built through conscripted work of enslaved individuals, formerly enslaved individuals. And so there's an effort being done to try to reconnect descendants of those that helped build the fort and tell the stories from their ancestral perspectives.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So now I don't know if you can talk about this, but your 9 to 5 is connected to this whole process too, isn't it?
It is. So I do professionally, I have a degree in library and information science and a master's in public health a master's of public health. And I work for an academic medical center. And a major part of my work responsibilities are helping the people that we serve organize and manage information and manage it in a very smart and intelligent ways. So when I started doing genealogy, I just love the fact that my professional skill sets match so well to what I do as a hobby, because it involves researching information, analyzing, critiquing information, compiling, summarizing, and annotating information. So it's all those same skill sets that I get to use and apply.
Wow. Okay, so I didn't tell you to do this in advance, but if they are close by, your annual books that you put together for your family or some of those examples, can you pull them out and show us?
I can. I'd have to, you mean my family yearbooks?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd have to stand up. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but they're right behind me on the shelf. So hold on. I will stand.
Put the video on off and then
Okay.
Go.
Okay. All right.
I don't want you to stand up and we see something.
Okay. Oh, I'm fully dressed. So all right, I'm gonna go pull it off the shelf.
Okay. So this is amazing. I have seen what she's done, and some people just have the ability to stay on task and do things that are absolutely incredible. And you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second.
Okay, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay. All right. Describe it for those that are listening and show it for those that are watching.
Sure thing. So every year I work on family scrapbooks where I document what's going on in my nuclear family. So this is myself, my husband, and our 5 children combined. We have 4 boys and a daughter between the 2 of us. And so I create these scrapbooks because I really wanted to be able to chronicle the events of our years. So for 2018, I have the example for 2018. And that is in 2 volumes. So these are the spines of them. And you see, they don't take up a lot of space, the 2 volumes combined. And I will show the cover. Let's see if that's visible. So it's a little hard to see, but it says 2018 right across. And this is my husband and I. And then inside our scrapbook pages to document our year. Now it's going to be difficult to see it, but it's very vibrant in color. What I typically do is I just pick an event to chronicle, like this was a friend's birthday party. And then I just put the date it happened and write down some thoughts of how we experienced it. Oh, this is a good one. Maybe I'll share it if you want to, maybe we can put a link for somehow in the actual video, but this is a historical one. So this is me capturing a memory my mother had about her school experience as a young child. I ended up finding a newspaper article mentioning the principal because, okay, you asked about 5-year-old Taneya. This is 5-year-old Diane. So 5-year-old Diane, she remembers once being pulled out of the classroom and being walked down the hall holding the principal's hand. And she has a very vivid memory of this. And she found a picture on Facebook, and then I found the newspaper article. So this was her describing that experience for me.
Nice. Now that reminds me of when someone contacted me on Facebook, and I saw the name, and I said, that name sounds familiar. And I looked at, and I thought it was from my high school days. So I went to my scrapbook and found the name, and it was indeed one of the basketball stars of my high school.
Wow.
And the newspaper articles about the team and naming this person as an MVP and all that. So once we spoke, I sent copies of it to him. And I think I posted it either on my page or his. And it was a great moment to be able to hear about his grandchildren being real excited about seeing them. You know, those are good moments when you can connect people back to their own past.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So I do these books. I have 20, I started doing them in 2017. So I have 2017, 2018, 2019 is halfway done. 2020 is about halfway done. So I've got to catch up, but I do chronicle our years, and it's just something I really enjoy. I've pulled them back out with the kids. So it's been nice to have them.
Now, since we share DNA, let me tell you how mine works with that. I'm not quite that detailed. I do have scrapbooks. I do have journals that I've kept over the years. And what I currently do is that I have documents that are chronicles. So if I find an old piece of paper with my name on it that tells some story or that connects to some event from the past, I'll scan that into that document in the date that it is. Like I may have from birth to 20 years old. Well, anything that falls within that time frame, I will scan it into that part of the chronicle. And if it's just 10 years ago, wherever that was, I'll scan it into that part. So I put it in date order, not in the date that I found, not when I found it, but where it fell in terms of the actual activity. And so all those sound bites of my life, I'm able to capture them and put them in place so that they create a bigger and better, more complete story without my having to sit down and try to remember in order all the things that have ever happened. It's just as I find them, as I remember them, I include them.
Absolutely. And that's one of the tips that I share whenever I, help others organize their materials as well, is use your chronology, because all of these things are moments in time. And so, you want to leverage that, and it makes your process easier as you look over the whole scope and collection of what you have.
Mm-hmm. And to connect the last two statements that you and I made, when you were talking about your mother and her remembering when she was 5 years old, the other thing is that my aunt when she was 81 or 2 or so. Um, I found a picture of her when she was the captain of the basketball team, and they were in little white bloomers. That's how long ago it was. And when I showed that picture to her, even though she was beginning to decline and was experiencing some Alzheimer's symptoms, she named everybody on that picture except one,
Wow.
and last name. And yeah. And so I wrote the names on the back of the picture. And when she passed away, um, I realized that had she not done that, those names would have just gone poof.
Exactly.
And now I have hopes of reconnecting that picture with some relative that have, found out that I have that copy, and now they have a picture of their aunt or uncle or grandparent, so.
That's beautiful that she remembered that, was able to share that with you, and that you documented. Because you're right, if we don't do this work to capture what we can, it does get lost.
Mhm. It does.
Mhm.
And the times that we are right now, the thing that I keep thinking of is how much wisdom is leaving this earth so quickly, and so much of it right now.
Right.
And it makes it important that we sit down and talk to our elders, to, because we don't know now. I mean, we hope that everybody lives to be 100 years old, but now they're talking about the average age is actually dropping because of what's going on.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, um, tell me about the you also have something on Facebook now, Facebook Live. Tell me
I
about.
do. So I have a Facebook group community. It's called the Academy of Legacy Leaders. And it intertwines so nicely with how you described your work before, right? To preserve legacies. And so we are a group of the family history enthusiasts. Our expertise levels range. So we have some individuals that don't really do genealogy, quote unquote, research, but are still interested in their family history and learning to explore more, all the way up to professionals who do this full time for a living all day, every day. And we just share information on tips that can be
Okay, we're having a little bit of a network problem. I'm going to pause for a second. That's if I can. I also understand that you have a Facebook Live group. Tell us about that.
Yes. So the Facebook group is called the Academy of Legacy Leaders. And we are a group of individuals that love to share and tell stories about our family histories. So the expertise levels of the individuals in the group varies. We have people who don't really do genealogy at all, but have an interest in their family history, all the way up to professional genealogists. And we share tips, resources, stories, discoveries we've made. It's quite a collaborative community. In the group, I do lives twice a month. One of those lives, I focus on something educational. And the second live, I have interviews with members in the group. And the focus of those interviews is for them to share how they are being leaders in sharing their family legacies. So those are quite inspirational for us as a community.
Wow, nice. So, give me an example of some of the people that you've had on, not necessarily by name, but the kinds of things that they share.
Sure. So I've had one woman in the group share an amazing story of how she connected to a formerly enslaved ancestor after after watching something on television and seeing the locality mentioned and then the names mentioned. And she did her investigations and found this very rare documentation of her enslaved ancestor's life. Had another group member share an initiative that she's working on that will help us build websites that are truly collaborative for sharing our family history in a way that is not currently available in the market. I've had a group member share with us her experiences using Facebook as a vehicle for sharing and encouraging her family to discuss their histories. A lady who does cemetery research, and so she shared with us how her different cemetery explorations and what she's learned from that. So it really runs the gamut.
It's so funny because I was in a cemetery. We started out talking about that, and I had a similar experience as you did. Walking through the cemetery, someone actually said the words, "The whole community is here,"
Mm,
and I understood it. It was like we were seeing people that we grew up with,
yeah,
you know, and so some people don't like going out there, but it is a moment where you can remember who was in your life at certain points in time, and they had an impact on you as you were, at some point in your life.
right.
So you know what this reminds me of now? Nah. Okay. I should have had that off. Um, okay. What this reminds me of is the fact that I actually collect or save. I shouldn't say collect. I save obituaries, and I had a relative tell me that that was somewhat morbid until that relative looked in my book and found a picture of a relative that she was double related to,
Hmm.
and that was the only picture she ever saw of him.
Wow.
So she went and never again said anything else about how morbid that was because it's the link to things that we are are not aware enough to pay attention to as children, but then we crave them as we grow older because they're the connections to people that we didn't understand why they were in our lives. Why did grandmama like this person so much? Oh, that was her first cousin, you know. So,
Exactly right.
your thoughts about that?
No, that's exactly right. Because as you said, we collect these things because they capture the history of our families and our communities. And we're doing this in a way to give back and ensure that that knowledge and the wisdom doesn't get lost, right? And
Right.
so while others may look at it and consider it morbid, just as the case of what you shared, once you have a personal connection and you find something that is relevant for you, that's when it really becomes impactful.
Wow.
And I've seen that in my own family. It's at first it's like, well, why are you doing this? And then there reaches a moment where it truly, okay, can I share a story? I'm going to call out my father here. He
Here,
won't mind. so,
here we go.
so when I first started doing this, and I say this kind of jokingly, he'll understand. When I first started doing family research, and I would call him, Daddy, guess who I talked to? He goes, who? I said, your third cousin. He's like, I don't even talk to my third cousin. Well, why are you calling all these people? And I would share with him and explain why I was doing it. And then one day he calls me after having had a cousin that he grew up with pass away. And he called me on the way to the funeral, and he just said, I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing, because it is important that we preserve the memories of our families. And it resonated with him. And I will tell you, Friday night, he calls me asking me a family history question.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've seen him go the whole range from being disinterested to it having a personal impact. And now he calls me.
Oh, nice. So, what do you say to people that say you need to leave that alone?
Well, I will document it anyway. I will research it as best I can. Understandably, there are things that happen that people would rather not be known. So, I do keep that information private. And if there's ever a point where I feel it would be okay to share with a certain circle, I might do that, but I respect the wish to keep things private. Some things need to be kept private. It's not all meant to be shared publicly. I just try to capture what nuances I can.
Well, I have to tell you, I have mixed feelings about that because as I was growing up, being the youngest grandchild that grandmother had when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
She had some more after that. 'Cause had another set of children that I love dearly, but they're all younger than I am. But I was the baby at the time, and it meant that I heard a lot of the stories. And as I grew up, because people were familiar with grandmother, they became close to me. I think they felt close to her when she was gone through me, especially since I had her name too. But I was her baby. I mean, I grew up with grandmother. But it also meant that people started telling me things. And I know of at least one thing that was told to me um, by an older cousin, and it was about other cousins. And then I found myself in the presence of the other cousin,
Mm-hmm.
and that cousin was telling me a different story. And knowing what I knew, I heard the holes in the story,
Mm-hmm.
and but I couldn't say anything.
Right.
And I felt real strange about that, because this person thinks that life is this way, and it may in fact be totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough situation to deal with, and, given that we want to document and capture things as accurately as we can. But I just there will be. It depends on the situation, but there will be times when you just can't.
Mhm.
So
And yeah, it's not for me to
yeah,
prove,
yeah,
but anyway, it's a dilemma. And I
yeah.
I did what you did. I actually documented it, but it's not shared.
Right.
But you know how that works? Now this is kind of funny. Um, when we get real old, Taneya, like, you know, about to leave this earth, let's hope we don't start babbling.
Well, by that time, hopefully the affected parties will be in a different place. But yeah, that could happen, right? So that could happen.
Because some secrets have come out when people forget that they're not supposed to tell that secret.
Every family has them.
Mhm. Okay, so what's next? And then tell people how to get in touch with you.
All right. So what's next? I'm having a lot of fun with the Facebook group. Am doing some coaching on helping others organize their digital photos and files. And how you can get in touch with me, I really encourage you to look me up on Facebook, or so you can look up the group Academy of Legacy Leaders, or you can go to my website, taneyakoonce.com, and find me there.
Okay, and I give you fair warning. When you get there, you're going to be blown away.
Well, thank you for the
Oh,
compliment.
it's amazing. Like the family tree, now that I look at it, it's like, good gracious, I didn't know you could be related to so many people.
Oh yeah.
But if I want to know something, I go clicking on your part of the family tree.
Please do. That's what it's there for. Except for information about living individuals, that stays private. So
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. But I must tell you, and the rest of the world, that I am so glad that we met, and we met because of DNA.
yes,
You're just a fascinating person, and I'm proud to be related to you.
same here. And when I've said I have a cousin who's a genealogist too, I love it. And we've
Yeah.
even gotten to meet in person. So that's excellent.
And I didn't even mention it when you were saying it, but I am a part of the local AGS group here too.
That's right.
I'm quite adamant about certain things being allowed to happen for them, especially as it relates to the festivals that takes place here. You know, I found myself jumping on the table, not literally, but emotionally saying, how can you have a Black Heritage Festival if you don't have the genealogy group associated with it? You gotta have it. And that's how they got involved with a long-term relationship with the Black Heritage Festival. So that's my little claim to fame.
Excellent. Yes, you do great work, and I'm proud of you too.
Yeah. All right, then. Thank you so much for being on this show with me. This is not going to be the last one because I want you back on,
Absolutely.
especially as we peel back this onion that we were a part of as life.
Got that correct.
All right. Have a great day and enjoy the hunt.
All right. Same to you, and happy have a good luck with your genealogy research and all the work that you do to spread the legends in your community.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And to the listening audience, thank you very much. Oh, and watching audience too. This has been another show that I've enjoyed, and I hope you do too. And if you do, please press the like button and subscribe and tell your friends about it. Tell me who needs to be interviewed. I want to know about the young legends and the wisdom that's floating around your universe. Let me know. Take care.